Alright, we are at the end of the Wisdom Saga, and this is God Games. Now, I have seen the title God Games pop up a lot in the comments of people basically being pretty sure that God Games was going to be one of the songs, especially after I had made the My Goodbye video, that this song was going to make me essentially crash out. Which I do have to look at you all and say we have severely underestimated how frustrated I was going to be with this portrayal of Telemachus and the situation on Ithaca. Which also then makes me fear what on earth is happening here in God Games. Now, just going by the title and the fact we have, I mean, given the title of the saga, the Wisdom Saga, we're leaning into like, hey, what's been going on with Athena? This is going to be what is essentially the opening of the Odyssey. Now, the opening of the Odyssey, as much as I say, hey, we open on Ithaca, technically we open on Olympus. And we open with Zeus having his famous words saying, man, you know, humans blame the gods for all these things that happen to them when it is their choices that make, even when we give them warnings, it is their choices that ultimately seal their fates. And we initially start withdrawing these parallels that are going to be pretty clear between what happens with Agamemnon and what happens with Odysseus. Let me add, this is part of where I was saying, oh, I would love to see Agamemnon in the underworld. Part of that being the parallels between what happens to Agamemnon coming home from his Nostos and being murdered by his wife is a direct contrast to what happens between Odysseus and Penelope. You know, he comes home and he's not killed. I mean, he kills a lot of people, which is super satisfying and we love it. But what happens with Agamemnon is constantly referenced through the Odyssey. It's also constantly referenced to Telemachus as he's seeing a parallel for himself in the character of Orestes, who is the son of Agamemnon, who upon his father being murdered by his wife and her lover, who was also Agamemnon's cousin made by incest. If you want a real quick, reasonable speed run of the awkward ick that is the House of Atreus, as it gets called, you can go back to The Horse and the Infant. I spent a good amount of time, like, laying out as much as I could a speed run of how messy that house is. But this is something that is made constantly paralleled, essentially, or contrasted in the Odyssey. So in case anybody was ever wondering why I was like, oh, I wish I'd at least seen Agamemnon and why I had brought that up, it's because in the Odyssey, it's frequently brought up. It's a very deliberate, like, oh, well, this happened. So what's going to happen with Odysseus when he ultimately makes it home? Now, the Odyssey makes it pretty clear that it's likely, you know, Penelope's not going to pull a I just this in Clytemnestra because she's a direct contrast to Clytemnestra. Though also, again, to be fair, the Odyssey is actually reasonably fair to Clytemnestra. Homer pretty much blames Aegisthus more than he does Clytemnestra. Says, no, it's wicked Aegisthus, it's all his fault, because Aegisthus, let's remember, is like this product of incest, and he's potentially partially responsible for the death of Atreus, and it's just, again, there's a lot of ick. Why the House of Atreus is just big, icky, gross, like, just a hot mess. And, like, honestly, Menelaus, the chillest member of that house. Like, the only time he gets all up in arms is when his wife gets kidnapped, which, I mean, valid. Let's be real, that's kind of valid. And also is one of the only ones who seems to have a reasonably happy marriage. Like, again, with the exception of his wife being kidnapped off to Troy for like 10 years, Menelaus and Helen seem to have a pretty happy marriage. Like, that's the real big blip. Other than that, it's an almost unremarkable story, which is good. Honestly, unremarkable in terms of a marriage or relationship in Greek mythology is good. We like unremarkable. But anywho, we open up on Olympus and Zeus basically says, this is what went down with Aegisthus and Orestes and Agamemnon. And Athena sees her opening and takes it, because of course she does. Our legend. She rolls up and says, you know what, Zeus, you're totally right, and this makes me, I worry for Odysseus. But my heart breaks for Odysseus, that seasoned veteran cursed by fate so long. Far from his loved ones still, he suffers torment, off on a wave-washed island rising at the center of the seas. Olympian Zeus, have you no care for him in your lofty heart? Did he never win your favor with sacrifices burned beside the ships on the broad plain of Troy? Why, Zeus, why so dead set against Odysseus? And Zeus, who can never resist his favorite child, Athena, and, like, never just not give her what she wants, ever, says, my child, Zeus who marshals the thunderheads replied, what nonsense you let slip through your teeth. Now, how on earth could I forget Odysseus? Great Odysseus, who excels all men in wisdom, excels in offerings too. He gives the immortal gods who rule the vaulting skies. No, it's the earth shaker Poseidon. Zeus basically says, I got no beef with Odysseus. That's all on Poseidon. Now, yeah, we have the whole thing with the Helios' cattle thing that happened, but like, Helios had the beef and like the men committed sacrilege. He doesn't blame Odysseus for that. Odysseus is the one who narked. And after saying like, hey, this is why Poseidon is mad at Odysseus, says, but come, all of us here put heads together now, work out his journey home so Odysseus can return. Basically, no problem. What Athena wants, Athena gets. And as much as he says, gather round, like we say the other Olympians are there, none of the other Olympians speak. This is literally just pretty much a conversation between Zeus and Athena, at which point she goes, great, glad we have that sorted out. Now I'm headed down to Telemachus. So if I were to guess that God Games is essentially going to be this scene, we've kind of reverse ordered how book one happens. In that in Epic, we have Athena just like rolling down to Ithaca for reasons that are unknown to us, meeting Telemachus, and now coming back, and apparently she has no idea what's been going on this whole time.
Yeah, about that.
Versus in Homer, where she is very aware of what happens. She tells Zeus what's happening, says, Dad, please, let my Ithacan man go. And he's like, absolutely, daughter. Be on your way. We'll figure out how to try and chill Poseidon out. Don't worry, we got this. We got this. Poseidon's not even here right now. That is part of the thing. If anybody's wondering where the heck is Poseidon in all of this, it is stated in the opening of the Odyssey that he's off in Ethiopia basically partying his face off.
Honestly, get it.
That's what I'm guessing is what God Games is supposed to be. Although this is a nearly 5.5 minute song. And that's a really quick encounter. So I'm kind of wondering how Jorge is going to extend this encounter, because I'm assuming that's what he's going to do. And I'm like, I really hope we essentially get a good debate, because you denied me essentially a good debate, good political talk in all the rest of this saga, which is what I should have been getting. So like, you're gonna give me something here? But also I'm curious because we have not seen the gods interact with each other yet. They've interacted with humans, at least the 4 gods that we've met have interacted with humanity, but we have not seen the gods interacting with each other. And so I'm like, bring me my girl dad. Like, Zeus is a hot mess, and he's bad about many things, but he is the most powerful girl dad of girl dads in Greek mythology. Is this Olympus? Divine choirs?
Father, God King, rarely do I ask for favors. Now I'm knocking on your door with hopes to save a friendship with one who's a prisoner far from home. Odysseus.
Divine intervention.
Save a friendship? Again, this has nothing to do with that. And at this point, she has already cast aside this friendship. What friendship is there to save? It's apparently been destroyed in my goodbye, and she has not appeared to help Odysseus prior to this. Again, I would note this is potentially part of the problem of essentially writing a whole section to try and explain away something that ultimately doesn't need to be explained away, which is why is Athena not there? In the case of Jorge, he decided to give them a big breakup song versus her essentially potentially being preoccupied with other shit. There are other people on the earth. She's a little busy. Or also noting that she always had faith in Odysseus. That again is one of the big things about their relationship, is that she maintained a trust in Odysseus, and ultimately you could say a lingering trust in humanity. She had belief. She wanted him to succeed, no matter how many times she has been disappointed by humans and by Greek heroes prior to this. She tells Odysseus, I knew you were getting home, so I didn't step in. There's also the fact that if she were to step in and basically do all the work for him, there'd be no Kleos for Odysseus. No glory and honor for that man. She's thinking ahead. This woman's got her thinking cap on.
Divine intervention. Is that what you seek? To untie apprehensions that were placed on that Greek. You are playing with thunder for a man full of shame, but if he's worth the risk of going under, why not make it a game? Convince each of them that he ought to be released. And
would it have been so bad to give me Zeus the girl dad? He can be a hot mess and still be a girl dad. especially for Athena. I mean, again, this is his favorite child. She is not always on Zeus's side, but he is always on her side, basically. I kind of hate that that relationship has been destroyed, because it's one of the few things you can... I mean, look, it's really easy to rag on Zeus, because we can say, like, if only he'd kept it in his pants and all the jokes, and I get it. But as with many character, if you will, in stories, you can look and say, like, does he have a positive thing about him? Look, honestly, his relationship with Athena is an immensely positive thing, and it's a beautiful relationship. It's one of those things you kind of cling to and go, you know, but he does have this. And it's just so great, because you can see how valued Athena is amongst all the Olympians, like how important she is to how Olympus basically functions, because if we're all running on the will of Zeus and her voice is the one that he seems to value the most, this is how important she is. And we've just destroyed it in just saying, why not make it a game? And him playing with her in this way. And I get, while that's not as dramatic for the story, like, make it a game, draw it up into this whole thing. I'm like, I get it, that's dramatic. I just find that sad. It's easy to fall back on, to just be like, well, Zeus, the gods only play games and they do nothing else. They, you know, this is all just a game to them. And it's like, that's a really easy thing to fall back on. In the same way that a lot of, you could say, Hollywood productions, whenever they tackle Greek mythology, go, well, it's easy to just say Hades is the bad guy because he's Lord of the Underworld. Like, that's the thought process, basically, right? He must be bad, he's Lord of the Underworld. It's like, Hades is arguably one of the like, least involved of the gods. Like, he does not go out of the underworld much, ever. But in here, it's just, we've reduced so many of these gods into just being like playing games and nothing else. It's reductionist, and I don't know. I also wonder if this is just a chance for Jorge to bring in more gods. It seems like Zeus is talking about other gods. I have a feeling we're just going to bring in more gods. Somebody mentioned Ares in the comments. Ares is showing up here, isn't he? Because technically, Ares appears in the Odyssey. Ares, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus are part of a story that's told in the Odyssey. So, like, they don't technically appear, but a story about them is told. Notably, the time that Hephaestus caught Ares and Aphrodite in flagrante by designing a net that caught them.
So, yeah, there's that.
As much as I'm not loving the direction this is potentially going, I will, as the kids say, I'll let him cook. Let me see. Maybe he will give me a debate session. And I'll love that.
I'll release him.
Who's them?
Who do you think? All the gods are there.
Apollo!
Apollo.
Hephaestus! Aphrodite! Ares! Hera! Or me.
Or me? Girl, take Zeus. It's not a contest. Zeus will do what you want. In the mythology, that again, this would never work. I mean, one, Zeus would not do this. Two, if it's a choice of convince all these other gods versus convince Zeus, Athena's gonna take Zeus. She'll win. So, or me, I mean, she can. I don't see where the difficulty is. This is the problem of knowing, I think. In that I go and I'm like, what's the difficulty? Convince one person or convince, what, 5? I'm like, take your odds, go with the one. And also go with the one who has always sided with you. You were born from his head. He gave you the Aegis. Like, you're his third born, you're his favorite child. And this is one of those things where this is known up to this point in the story. Like, again, one of the main problems I have with the writing of Epic is it demands that essentially nothing has happened prior to the musical and nothing has happened since. Like, none of these characters have had lives or that they've done things. And again, it is established by this point, again, it is known Athena is Zeus's favorite child, even if they won't say it outright. She's his favorite child. I will say it's interesting, all of the gods named, Apollo, Hephaestus, Ares, Aphrodite, and Hera, are all gods who are kind of actively involved in the Iliad specifically. And actually, I wonder if that's why Jorge chose these characters. Apollo, Ares, and Aphrodite are all on the side of the Trojans. Zeus, technically neutral, kind of seems to lean a bit towards the Trojans, but officially neutral. Hera, absolutely on the side of the Greeks with Athena. Hephaestus does not pick a team. He literally only shows up when Achilles' mom comes to him and says, please make my son new armor because his was worn by Patroclus. Patroclus got killed and, you know, it's being given away as part of the spoils, if you will, of the funeral games. Make my son some new armor. And Hephaestus does. So Hephaestus, the truly only neutral party, he's like, I don't want to be involved, but okay, sure. Sure. And there's like, if anybody has read the Iliad, there's a very famous part of it where they describe in like entirety this new shield that Achilles gets, because it's super intricate in its design, and they spend a whole bunch of time just describing the shield of Achilles. Yo, you're getting bespoke Hephaestus armor? That's top quality shit. So I have a feeling that's probably why Jorge picked these gods specifically, in that they are ones who appear in the Iliad as players, essentially. Either they talk directly with each other to other characters, or they involve themselves in the actual battle. Notably, Ares, Aphrodite, and Apollo all show up on the battlefield at some point. Now, Aphrodite only goes so she can rescue her son Aeneas. Maybe you wish she hadn't, because then I wouldn't have had to spend a whole year translating the Aeneid.
Girl can dream, okay.
Ares can't resist a battlefield anywhere he goes, so of course he shows up, and Apollo comes in to sneak some shots at the Greeks, because of course he does. But I have a feeling we're going to make Athena decide the totally unwise option, which is apparently play this game with these other guys.
What do you say?
Great. Very well.
All right.
Groovy. Bring it.
Okay. An array of voices. I do like in the mixing how we traded, in my headphones, we traded between. Nice use of mixing left and right. I will also note this divine choir in the back. We always love a divine choir. Again, as much as I can disagree with the content, the music is really nice.
Apollo! You all know I'm a fan of catchy songs, so it's...
This voice is really similar to Hermes. Which, I mean, Hermes and Apollo are involved in a myth together. Part of the invention of the lyre is because of Hermes. Hermes actually invents the lyre. He also steals cows from Apollo. Again, cows. They're all over the place. I don't know if that was intentional. It just seemed interesting that his timbre reminds me of Hermes.
So many sirens gone, I think God is in the wrong.
Apollo does not care that sirens were killed. He literally does not give a shit. They were monsters.
He doesn't care.
This actually, here's a point where I'd say, why isn't he just talking about Troy? Again, when you've got 3 of the 5 people she's talking to against her on principle because they were rooting for the other side, the side that lost, why not just use that? Especially when you opened in Troy. It's right here. There's a reason he picked these gods. They're in the Iliad, so why not have the 3 who are going to be the most difficult to convince, Apollo, Aphrodite, and Ares, talk about Troy? If I'm going to have to play along with the idea that this game is happening and she's going to play it this way, come on, Jorge, there's a reason you picked these gods. 1, make that a little more clear, because people might not realize why these gods were picked. Let's talk Troy. That's the grievance 3 of these 5 gods are going to have. The grievance is Troy. Hera and Hephaestus are probably just annoyed that they're here, being like, why are we here? We have no beef with Odysseus, but Apollo, Ares, and Aphrodite do.
They were trying to do him worse. All he did was reimburse them. Now they'll tread with caution first to live another day.
I mean, what she's saying is right.
If that's true, release him.
Yeah, this whole thing was a non-argument.
Hephaestus.
Trust is not given, is forged. Why should I give him my support? He sacrificed his own cohort.
Sorry, I had to pause. What an interesting voice. There's an accent I can hear, which actually makes the voice sound even more interesting. But there's something about the timbre. It's very throaty, but in a way where you go, this is a guy who works in a forge. He's surrounded by smoke and fire. They would often say that a volcano is like the forges of Hephaestus. So it's like, oh, that's such an interesting voice choice. Like, as much as I said, like, Poseidon, sounds like the dude's been gargling salt water all his life. This guy basically sounds like he's been surrounded by soot and smoke all day. Such an interesting voice choice. Like, not one I, again, would ever think this is what I'm looking for with Hephaestus, but it'd be like, I hear this and go, Das Hephaestus. Das Hephaestus? Yes. Again, the 2 strongest aspects of this musical are the actual music itself and the voice cast. Like, there's been some truly inspired casting that's going on. This is another one, like, just a really unique voice I don't expect to hear. And paired with a character where it's like, this suits the character super well. I love that. Why should I give him my support? He sacrificed his own cohort. Okay. I'm assuming we're talking either about Scylla or Zeus's thingies. I'm going to say probably Zeus. Loyalty is, you could say, pretty important to the character of Hephaestus, given poor dude was married to Aphrodite and she was never loyal to him, which that sucks. But also famously, Hephaestus is actually disabled. He walks with a limp, and it is because Zeus literally flung him off Olympus, and the damage was such that it was permanent. And it was because Hera and Zeus, I believe, were in some sort of argument, and Hephaestus sided with Hera. Zeus did not like that, so he flung Hephaestus off, and everybody was going to go, how could he do that to his own son? Well, interesting story about Hephaestus and his birth/origin, if you will. Because it also comes to the question where I talked very heavily about how terrible it was that Polyphemus to the Greeks was left disabled, he was left blind, like how terrible that would have been to the ancient Greeks and how like that's such a big no-no. You could then ask the question, but what about Hephaestus? Here's the thing about Hephaestus. While, of course, variations on a theme, pick your poison, like, kind of depends on the writer, the overall narrative with regards to Hephaestus and his birth and his origins is that Zeus is technically not his father, because he doesn't actually have one. Essentially, Hera was annoyed at Zeus because, you know, he likes to wander off into other beds, and she basically said, I don't need you, essentially, to produce an offspring. I'll do it on my own. So she literally did, and like conceived, created, birthed Hephaestus all on her own. Thus, he then ends up crippled and stays that way, predominantly because the Greeks would view this as kind of wrong. Predominantly because they're just like, but that doesn't work. You need a guy and a girl, you know, like, that's not how that works. So they would view Hephaestus as like, that's kind of off. As a result, he ends up crippled and stays that way to show that there was something off about his origins, because he was made essentially by Hera out of spite for Zeus. It's then also why you get him siding with Hera in that argument, which anybody would look at and go, that's probably a terrible idea when Zeus is your king, but he's siding with essentially his only parent. It's big and messy and complicated, which, I mean, the Greek myths in a nutshell, all of their families are messy, all the way up to the top. I mean, we have an awful lot of fathers eating children going all the way up to Cronus. I mean, he overthrew his father, Uranus, so there you go. So, Hephaestus talking about loyalty does make sense. Talking about the cohorts, though, again, this is, I'm just going to point out that we have, like, it's an argument that's not really an argument. I mean, if we're talking specifically about the thunderbolt, then Athena's just going to throw back, there was a mutiny. And this is part of the problem of we've created this game and this encounter, and that it's basically too easy for Athena to win. Unless we're doing this on purpose, and Zeus is going to be like, my brilliant daughter. Like, I'm holding out some hope for my girl dad, okay?
Did you forget they failed to listen? He was betrayed and then imprisoned. Yeah. But if you make the right decision, he can still build a future with those who miss him.
Fine, release him.
Hephaestus doesn't want to be there. So Aphrodite is next.
Aphrodite, you're a little high and mighty. Odysseus claims to love his mother, but let her die of a broken heart. He was busy fighting.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Athena. He's busy fighting. These are such non-argument arguments. It's weird. And again, Aphrodite, along with Apollo and Ares, should be bringing up Troy. Like, actually talking about Troy.
Busy spiting the Cyclops, let him feel the pain that his mother felt and wrought. Wait! Please reconsider.
That is very much Athena's theme. We have the ticking, which is going at a different pace. People had said in the comments this idea of something called quick thought, this thing that Jorge invented because as if Athena wasn't powerful enough, we've decided to give her this ability. A lot of people could argue it's to basically explain how she's having these conversations with characters and nobody else is commenting on them. I'm like, well, these are musicals. I mean, let's just make the argument these are musicals. This is the idea of something that happens all the time. It's not that unusual. You're just... Regardless, assuming that's what's going on here, where because of the we drop everything out, that she's trying to basically buy time. Because Aphrodite has a point. He spited the Cyclops and spited Poseidon. Like, that's the actual argument here. And that's part of why Zeus basically says, all right, we'll put our heads together and figure out how are we going to smooth talk Poseidon for when we say we're letting him go? Because really Poseidon's the only one in the way. With a valid grievance. please reconsider this. I mean, I will say Aphrodite has no love of Athena. Athena has no love of Aphrodite. Not that they like hate each other. They're just like very different characters and types and how they go about their existences.
Really, Athena? These old tricks?
Ares!
What kind of sick coward holds back his power while his friends get devoured? He didn't even fight Scylla, didn't even try to kill her. Hides inside a wooden horse to get the job done. Never handles things up front, pathetic and weak like his son.
Ooh, don't be talking about Telemachus like that. No. We don't need to bring Telemachus into this, Ares. First off, this voice, that growl. Fantastic. Again, the fact that anybody can sing like that is super impressive to me because I would wreck my throat trying to do that. Like for me, I have to pull really back in on my throat and be like, I'm not in like this. It's a real strain. That he maintained it with that level of aggression, that level of crystal clear diction, just bravo. And as much as, yes, I think this entire premise of this song is ridiculous, Ares. And look, I've talked a lot of trash on Ares. Let's be real, it's kind of easy to do so. We say it's easy to do so with Zeus. It's easier to do so with Ares. Sir, I was unfamiliar with your voice game. I love the aggression. The, didn't even try to fight Scylla, didn't even try to kill her. I mean, Odysseus doesn't really try to fight Scylla in the Odyssey either. Nobody tries to fight Scylla. It's just like it's a zero-sum game. You don't fight Scylla. Like, that's the whole thing. You just don't. So Ares, come on now. But I mean, it is Ares. Ares is a hot mess. He is all about just raw aggression. He is bloodlust, raw aggression, always seeing red. Actually, this whole thing just makes me think of just like a Toro bowl. Just a charging bowl. That kind of fits Ares and kind of fits the way we just did this song.
Ooh, getting distracted, girl, calm down.
Hides inside a wooden horse to get the job done. Thank you! Somebody brought up Troy. Frankly, I needed Apollo and Aphrodite to be talking about Troy. Because this... Ares bringing up Troy and the horse, like, yes. So of the 3 points he made in his argument, which was didn't even try to fight Scylla, the wooden horse, and Telemachus. Okay, we didn't need to bring up Telemachus. We didn't need to really bring up Scylla. The wooden horse stuff, though. That's Aphrodite and Ares, ironically, the 2 characters who kind of get clowned on in the Odyssey, brought up actually the 2 most valid points they could have in terms of grievances against Odysseus. And why he should be punished. Now, really, we're talking more why he should continue to be punished, because he's already been punished. There's an irony here. Also, his hype choir coming in behind him. Like, I know we've had them all introducing them, but his choir is the only one that has repeated his name. Probably because it's a 2-syllable name and all the others have been 3 or more syllables. But his hype choir? Yes. I kind of love the hype choir. Also, it's nice to see because we have Ares and Athena, who are both deities of war and warfare, but they represent kind of opposite sides of it. Ares is truly like the melee. He is the thick of battle. He's the, if you would, almost the foot soldier. Like, he is the bloodlust, the raw aggression, the frenzy. There's a reason his like children and companions are things like discord and fear and these like terrifying aspects of war, like the, you could say, monstrosity of warfare, versus Athena, who is much more kind of the intellectual, the generals, the stratagem, and everything else that's going on. So we have the 2 war gods. How interesting.
Hold your tongue now, here stands my friend. And tell your lover that a broken heart can mend. You want more bloodshed, then set him free. To get back to his homestead, he'll make everybody bleed.
Let's go, the slaughter of the sinners. It's so good. The bit with Telemachus, no, but... yeah. But the rest, hell yeah.
Hey, baby.
So many heroes, so many tales.
Okay, Deepa.
Why you should prevail. He's got the mind of a genius. He's pretty skilled with what
you
can do better than that. He's kind of funny. Never once has you cheated on his wife.
Release him.
Done. There was literally all she had to say. Come on. I was just like, he hasn't slept with anybody else. Like, we made a big point of Epic being that he doesn't sleep with other people, versus the Odyssey where he does. But in the way that it happens in the Odyssey, the ancient Greeks would not have frowned upon what he does in what happens with Circe. As for Calypso, oh boy, yeah, that's a different story. They would not have frowned on that either, because literally not his fault. But, like, come on. I can't believe we had Athena have to fight for that. She would have come to that in a moment. Again, the whole hold your tongue now, his son's my friend. No. Obviously, I take argument with that. The voice for Hera, very diva. I like that she does sound older, too. Like, older than Athena, older than Aphrodite. Like, this is the queen of Olympus. She gets that crown and title, if you will. So there's a beautiful richness to her voice. The phrase I always think of was one that my band teacher in, like, high school would use, which was just, like, melted dark chocolate. Like, I can hear it. Also, the disco vibe to what she's doing, like, I can see her in full, like, 70s disco. I can see it. It's kind of a fun bit. And also, she should be the easiest, other than Hephaestus, to convince, because she and Athena were on the same side. Like, Hera's got no beef with Odysseus whatsoever. Same with Hephaestus, which is probably why Hera had to essentially kind of lead the horse to drink. Like, she had to be like, come on, Athena, you know the answer. This is gonna be really easy. It shouldn't have taken Athena that long. But also, yeah, this seems to have been a game that was designed to be won, which I'm kind of just now waiting for Zeus. Congrats, my favorite daughter, you're so smart. Oh, drama choir. Ooh, these drums.
I've played your game and won.
Softly
Release
aggressive.
him.
You dare to defy me, to make me feel shame.
Huh?
No one beats me. No one wins my game. KO! You lose.
Oh my god. Really?
Really?
Is it so much to ask? Again, I think the premise of this game is silly, but why not just do it so that it's easy to win? And then you just have Zeus be like, that's my girl, I knew you could do it, absolutely. We're gonna send Hermes off to Calypso, you know, get his son on his way. You got this. You truly are the best. Like, I don't know. Is it so much to ask for? And also, this idea of shaming Zeus. I mean, her saying never once has he cheated on his wife. She just knows that will please Hera. And if we're trying to do it where she's trying to shame Zeus, Athena would never. Even when she talks to Zeus about Odysseus, like, she never says, you know, Father, how dare you have forgotten, like, what kind of king are you? She says, have you forgotten him? You know, this man who has done so much, I worry that you have. There's a way of speaking. Again, this sort of politicking. We've stripped a lot of the nuance and the cunning and the clever, shrewd speak of all the characters involved in this saga specifically. Again, from Telemachus to the suitors, and now here. I'm sad about that, because again, I will argue against anybody who says people might not understand what's happening. I'm like, look, if Hamilton could literally do cabinet debates in rap and bring forth complicated issues, you can absolutely have Politico speak, if you will, going on in this saga and make it work. It's been proven that it can be done. Complicated issues are brought up in lyrics and difficult things are brought up all the time. And again, this is very me, personal opinion. I will ask the question, what is the point of this? While I am, yes, sad the change has happened, I'm also confused because I don't see the point of the change. This change in particular. Look, as much as I'm saying the game is silly, I get we're extending the encounter, we're bringing in more gods, sure, I guess. You can call that rule of cool if you want. It only goes so far, and there's only so much you can use something like rule of cool or because it's fun before it's like, okay, but no, really, what purpose is this serving? If ultimately we're going to be letting Odysseus go, which of course we are, and even if the audience doesn't necessarily know that, it would be really strange to have a whole song saying we're not letting him go. Like, what are we driving for here? Especially when we just had Zeus and Thunderbringer being like, do you want to go home or do you want to kill your crew? He's made it pretty clear that was the trade-off. So Odysseus inevitably is going to get home. Like, Epic has already set this up. This just seems like we did this for the sake of having it and it being cool, but now I'm like, just change Zeus's reaction here. Because he's clearly getting mad and he's gonna do something angry. I can't even enjoy how good his voice is. And the raps.
I show her I'm the judgment call, the one who makes the kingdom fall.
Did we just thunderbolt Athena?
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry, I will draw a hard line here. Jorge, I'm mad at you. As much as I told the story of Zeus taking Hephaestus and flinging him off Olympus, that's a unique situation because Hephaestus is not actually his kid in most of the mythology. Hephaestus exists kind of as an anomaly. It's the only notable time that he really does that. Does he punishes other children? Yes, he absolutely does. Normally what he does, a big thing he has used more than once, is I'm essentially forcing you to go live as a human for like a year. He does that notably, I believe, with Apollo, potentially even Poseidon, as when they try to lead a coup at one point against him, because of course they did. And he will come up with punishments. Using the thunderbolt, though? That weapon, if you will, does not come out often. That is a rare occurrence. He will use thunder. Obviously, we have the whole thing with calling up a squall and bringing down a thunderbolt on Odysseus and his men with Helios's cattle. They committed sacrilege. And Helios calls in the favor, basically. So it's thunder time. As much as I was making that joke, like actually pulling out the thunderbolt is something that doesn't happen often except in extreme cases. Things like the Titanomachia, the Gigantomachia. Something incredibly extreme has to have happened. And he would never use it on Athena. He would never attack Athena. He never does. It's not in the mythology. Again, she's his favorite. He essentially causes the death of other beings over anything happening to Athena. The sad story of Pallas is a really good example. So I do not like this. And I am also, again, sitting here going, why? Why? What's the point of it? Truly, other than to do it because maybe it's cool, I don't know. Are we trying to show Athena as some super cool, defiant girl? I'm like, that's not who she is. She is super cool, but she does it through talking. And she is in Zeus's good books and she knows how to talk to him. Again, he does not always take her advice, but he always listens to it. Always takes her sage counsel, acknowledges it as great counsel, even if maybe he decides to go a different way. You can argue whether or not that's the right or the wrong decision on your own, but I really personally do not like this destruction of the Zeus-Athena relationship. It's one of the most positive things about Zeus. It's one of the most like weirdly wholesome relationships, is this father-daughter relationship. Also, we'll then speak to how revered Athena is, because it is known that she is Zeus's third born, if you will, and basically his favorite. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not having an aneurysm, but I am angry at you, song. I have not thrown things. It has taken great self-control to not chuck things.
Is she dead?
I think that was Ares. Is she dead? No, she's not. The gods don't die. Warrior of the Mind and piano solo. Yeah, he injured her. You can tell by how weaker this sounds. Again, don't love that at all. Did we change that to legendary? Because that last bit, legendary. I'm sure I'm supposed to be reading into this that she's now guiding Telemachus, but we had her basically show up and then dip, so because we didn't play out Ithaca like it does in the source material, which is where it would make, I think, a lot more sense to then bring in the legendary bit there, so, oh boy. Anyway, we're bringing in brass. These drum hits.
Let him go, please. Let him go.
they changed the ending of that encounter, that whole thing, like, look, as I've said many times, I think the concept of the game is silly. I think the way you salvage it with me, and also do it so that you maintain depth and complexity to Zeus by showing this, and even to Athena and these other characters, by basically showing she has a good relationship with Zeus, her own dad, which you could then tie to maybe why she's looking at both Odysseus and Telemachus, because there's a father and child relationship.
Change the ending.
Don't have Zeus get mad. Just have her come out and say, Father, I played your game and I won. And have him basically praise her. He can be all of the terrible things that we would say. Like, he can be arrogant, he can be a boy, he can be a hot mess. He can also still be a good dad, at least to that child. Now, does he show it to all his children equally? No. But you would say he's a good father to Athena. That's how you maintain complexity in characters, showing all their sides. And I think that was a serious missed opportunity to show that dynamic, because it's a way of revealing another layer of characters. It's one of those things, I think everybody was expecting me to be mad, probably because I talked about how the relationship between Zeus and Athena is pretty wholesome. And like, again, while none of this goes down in the Odyssey, and it clearly was put in to extend the idea of Athena and Zeus have to talk about getting Odysseus home, and it's a very quick conversation in the Odyssey. Very quick. And you want to extend it out and bring in the drama, and sure, bring in other gods who featured in the Iliad again. I'm assuming that is why we brought in the gods that we did. They are players in the Iliad. Admittedly, of those players, 2 of the 5 are really not going to care because they have no gripe with Odysseus. And only 1 of the other 3 brought up the Trojan War, which would be their primary and really only beef with Odysseus. Like, Apollo has no other beef with Odysseus besides shit that went down at Troy. Aphrodite doesn't care beyond what happened at Troy. And Ares isn't frankly going to care at all, but he's just going to be like, well, I fought with the Trojans, and he fought with the Trojans because Aphrodite was on the side of the Trojans, like, literally. Because frankly, he is just happy to see bloodshed. Which they kind of actually get that across. I actually think of all the gods, the one they got across the best was Ares, the ending. That entire back third, I would change. I think it brings something more interesting to the character of Zeus and Athena if you realize the game is something that's friendly between them. That's sure. If you want to say they're playing games, they play games with each other. In this case, you could argue they're playing with a human's life, but they're not really. Zeus has already said, do you really want to go home, or do you want to save your crew? So he's guaranteeing Odysseus is already going to go home. You could argue that's like a prophecy, which means we know Odysseus is getting home. So in this case, the game between them is essentially him letting Athena flex her talking, argumentative, chatty, wise, cunning, wily muscles, if you will. And then have the end be him praising her for it. I mean, like, you've won his freedom, like, congrats, like, and, like, give us a bit of that relationship. And I don't think that requires any knowledge of their relationship prior to it, because you're revealing it there. And you're revealing these characters. And these are things that, again, are in line with the mythology, in line with stuff we're presented with in the Odyssey and in other bits of Greek myth. And it also just, again, brings you a new side. It shows these characters with yet more depth and complexity if you change it. So it's not just the, oh, okay, so what was the whole point of this thing? Because obviously I can see how people would probably like this song. I mean, again, good music and shit going on here, and you want to have a fun moment and see the gods be gods with each other. But the ending is actually kind of deflating when you just sit there like, what was the fucking point? When ultimately we know he's getting home, like, frankly, the king of the gods has already predicted it to us in the previous saga. Wouldn't it be better if he set it up as a game that Athena could win? And she chose the more esoterically difficult option of convincing 5 as opposed to convincing Zeus, where she'd easily win because Zeus will give in. And she, in that way, gets to show off just how clever she is, how good at reasoning she is. Just a thought. That's how I personally would completely alter this song so that you still get the fun of it, but you reveal more about the characters, you bring more complexity and depth to them and different sides to them, while still having the fun moment. Silly as I may think it is, I get you want the fun moment of the gods being gods, I get it. That being said, I survived the Wisdom Saga, though I'm now on to the Vengeance Saga, which everybody has said is basically going to give me a heart attack. Pretty much I think everybody has said I will get another concussion in some way thanks to the Vengeance Saga, so I don't know who or what I need to pray to, but apparently I should pray, because there's at least one song that people have mentioned with vagueness, specifically Vengeance Saga, is gonna like make me blow my top and crash out in ways unimaginable. I'm scared.